Hey everyone, it's Friday, September 12th, 2025, and today we're doing something a little different. This is a special, in-depth episode focusing on one urgent immigration story that's playing out right now in Tennessee. We've seen headlines about legal fights and policy shifts, but tonight we're sticking with one thread and tracing it from statute to safety net, from fear to courtroom battles, and what it means for everyday people who just try to help others. Why a single story? Because this law touches landlords, houses of worship, shelters, and families alike, and it's already reshaping how communities respond to people in need. This isn't theoretical. It's about real lives and real consequences on the ground as of today, with a federal challenge winding its way through courts and a state enforcing it in the meantime. Let's set the scene. Tennessee's new human smuggling law, SB 392, and HB 322 took effect on July 1, 2025. At its core, it makes it a Class E felony to harbor someone the state says entered or stayed unlawfully, but with a twist that makes this especially risky for everyday helpers. The statute defines harboring as sheltering or concealing the whereabouts of a person known to have entered or remain unlawfully, and it says this offense can be prosecuted if it's done for any commercial advantage or private financial gain. And here's the tricky part. The law expressly treats rent, donations, and even grants as financial gain. So a landlord collecting rent, a church running a shelter, a nonprofit operating a family program, or a relative letting a cousin crash on the couch could all face felony charges if ICE's records at any moment show that someone in their orbit had an unlawful entry or stay. That ICE trigger matters a lot. The statute allows prosecution as determined by ICE, even if an immigration judge later rules that the person was lawfully present. In other words, a snapshot in an ICE database could lead to serious state charges that outlive any later court decision. The practical effect is chilling. Shelters that take in kids under 13 could face the harshest penalties, and organizations that rely on donations or grants to operate essential services are suddenly calculating whether helping someone is worth the risk of criminal exposure. A coalition responded with a lawsuit, arguing the law encroaches on federal authority over immigration, is vague, and chills religious and charitable work. As of September 11, 2025, no injunction has paused enforcement, so people are already tightening their rules. Landlords asking for more documentation, churches pausing overnight programs, and relatives hesitating to host someone in need. That's not just a policy debate. It's a shift in daily life for people who provide housing and support to vulnerable communities. The state argues the law is about stopping people who knowingly assist undocumented migration and ensuring accountability. Critics counter that the law punishes ordinary acts of compassion and threatens the safety nets that many families rely on. What happens next? The court fight over ICE's triggering authority, constitutional challenges, and the law's vague terms will unfold, but the human stories are already in motion. Landlords may turn away tenants. Shelters may limit capacity. Families may choose not to host relatives who could be caught in a web of penalties. The broader question this raises is about balance. How do states deter serious human trafficking and smuggling while preserving the compassionate norms that keep vulnerable people safe? And how do federal-state dynamics shape the everyday acts of help that communities depend on, especially when federal enforcement decisions can eclipse later court outcomes? From a policy perspective, we also need to consider the ripple effects on housing markets, faith-based service providers, and nonprofit funding. If donors and grant makers worry about liability, funding for shelters and aid could contract just as demand rises in some regions. If landlords fear prosecution, access to affordable housing could tighten for immigrant families who've already faced barriers in the rental market. And for the people who need help most, the fear of prosecution can deter them from seeking housing or services at all, leaving them more vulnerable. So why does this matter to you? Because laws like this illuminate how immigration policy, criminal law, housing regulation, and faith-based social services collide in real life. They reveal gaps between intention and impact, and force communities to make hard choices about safety nets, neighborliness, and the kinds of support we want to preserve in times of national debate. This episode isn't just about Tennessee. It's a lens on how states respond when federal policy and local compassion meet in the same courtroom and in the same living room. I'll be watching the court filings, the arguments about federal supremacy, and the stories of people who are negotiating the new rules, one day at a time. Before we wrap, a note on sources and context. We'll keep you updated on any injunction developments, details from the coalition's lawsuit, and what officials say about enforcement priorities as the case moves forward. For ongoing coverage and deeper dives, visit visaverge.com, where we track how immigration policy plays out on the ground across the country. Thanks for spending this Friday with me. If you know someone who's wrestling with the implications of this law, landlords, shelter directors, faith leaders, or families, share this episode. Our goal is to translate legal moves into real-world understanding, so listeners can navigate fear with facts and make informed decisions about who we choose to help and how we do it. Until next time, stay curious, stay compassionate, and stay informed with visaverge.com.